On my 90-gallon reef, there's three major categories of failure, right? So there's electrical, plumbing, and I live in Alaska, aka Reef Guy, Alaska, so earthquake is one that I need to be aware of. There's also power outages, which I'm working on. Don't have a lot to say about that on this video. But starting with electrical, I have ground fault GFCI outlet on the back. I put that in. So if there's a ground fault, it'll short out. If water gets in it, it'll short out. I also have surge protectors on the outlets. Both power strips are surge protectors, Wi-Fi enabled outlets. Okay. Plumbing, there's 5 fail-safes built into my plumbing system. There is a check valve, which a lot of people don't really like check valves. They're prone to failure. They need to be cleaned. The one I put in can be removed. It has ball valves, true union ball valves on each side, so they can be removed and periodically cleaned. You'll see that there's a plunger inside of that. That can get gummed up with just biofilm, calcium buildup in there. You have to keep it clean. Otherwise, if you do have a power outage and your return lines start to back siphon, that plunger won't come down and it may not stop back siphon. Now, knowing that, I still wanted to use one, but I wanted to back it up. And what I did was on my return lines, on either side, I drilled a hole, a very small hole in the top of the return, and I stuck a piece of black airline tubing, silicone airline tubing in there. That comes up and it suction cups to the top of the tank, and then there's a T valve, and that comes straight out. And if you know much about siphoning, if the siphon is allowed to get air, it immediately breaks the siphon. The air breaks the siphon. So on each return line with that T valve, that's 2 points that can break the siphon, and there's 1 on each side. So 4 points can break the siphon on those. Now I'll have to keep them clean, keep the salt creep out of them. Have to keep up with that, okay? But in theory, each one of those could break the siphon. So there's a little bit of redundancy built into that. As long as I keep them clean, any one of them should be able to prevent it. And if those fail, then we're down to the check valve. Okay? Check valve is the primary. It should drop immediately and stop it. I tested it when I did the water test and it worked just fine, the check valve. So the next one, the earthquake brackets. A couple of years ago in Alaska, we had a huge earthquake, 7.6 or something like that. It was crazy. House damage. Many of my friends had house damage. I was lucky enough, my wife and I, we did not. We had a couple things fall over, that was it, the extent of it. I had a freshwater tank at the time, and my BioCube freshwater tank shifted on the stand a couple degrees. Didn't tip over, sloshed some water on the floor, but that was the gist of it. My reef tank hadn't glued my pile of rocks together, so they just crumbled. And I went back afterwards and reassembled them, used epoxy, did it right the second time. So this tank, yes, this aquascape is absolutely epoxied and glued together very thoroughly. I used a ton of epoxy on this. The other thing you'll see is it is bolted to the wall. And how I did that was I used these earthquake brackets you can get for bookshelves. They're made out of galvanized steel. And I hooked them up to the brackets that hold the plumbing on. What's interesting about this is when I was finished, I stepped back and looked at it. And because the plumbing holds the tank to the stand and the earthquake brackets are bolted to that bracket that holds the plumbing together, it's basically the stand and the tank are tied together with the earthquake bracket, and both of them are anchored to the wall. So it should really help with a good sized earthquake. Now, if we have a monster, nothing's going to stop it. It's just going to rip it right out and it's going to fall over. But what I've done is by far better than nothing at all. Okay, so if you live in an earthquake zone, explore some options, do something. Okay, I have a friend who had a 55-gallon during that earthquake. It tipped over, fell flat on its face, blew up into a million pieces. Second floor house, water all the way down. She didn't have carpet, she had marble floor. It was a huge mess. So always, if you live in an earthquake zone, always make sure you're thinking about that. You know, not just, oh, it won't happen or it'll be okay, my tank's big enough. go a little bit further than that. Okay, put some mitigations in there. Protect your system, protect your critters from that. Okay, also that water sloshing, okay, earthquake water sloshing, that GFCI outlet's going to help me out. And you know, plumbing is a real good way to irritate the spouse. We'll just say that. Okay, a big leak in the house of salt water can do a ton of damage to your home. So make sure when you're putting a tank together that you're designing redundancies into it. Okay, if you buy a kit system, they may not have that. So always be looking for ways to put fail-safes in here. Okay, hope you enjoyed watching. Hope this encouraged you. Now, be this, know this, the next video, I promise you, will be this getting filled up in my living room and starting to cycle. Okay, I have some bio bricks in my bio cube that have been seeding with bacteria for probably 3 months now. So this thing will get a nice jump start on the cycle. I do plan on adding coral quickly. I'm going to do an experiment. I got a coral credit when I bought my Ecotex. I'm going to throw some coral in here early on to help establish biodiversity. So stay tuned. The next video should be good. If you haven't had a chance yet, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button. We're trying to build this channel, grow it to something bigger and better, and hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully it's helping you out. Take care.